Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce to you Mr. Dan O'Shannon. Mr. O'Shannon?
Wow. Thank you. I'm at a bit of a loss. I had a whole speech about how much we're like the slug, and now I have to... "22 years ago, oh my God, it's 2003 already. I'm sorry, I just get 2003, or as they say in some parts of the country, 2003. In England, I think they call it 2003. In Leroy, they call it 1979. 22 years ago, excuse me, I enrolled at Lakeland Community College. 1 month earlier, I had been asked to leave Cleveland State University. The reasons for this remain unclear, but had something to do with a grade point average. Now, according to this program that we all have, it says that I then, wait, hang on. Okay. It says I dropped out in 1982 to do stand-up comedy. And then, according to the way this is written, it appears that it took me 3 years to make $100. But to get back to that dropping out, it reads like it's the simplest thing in the world. He dropped out of school to pursue a career in comedy. The truth is, it was the scariest thing I ever did. It took me a long time to deliberate for, that decision. After all, staying in school and getting a real job offered security and safety. On the other hand, writing comedy was my dream, but the odds of my making it were about 0, I think. People warned me that I'd be throwing my life away. It was a scary place to be, and perhaps it's a place where some of you are right now. And this brings me to an ethical dilemma. What do I tell you? When I was asked to do this speech, they said, Dan, you chucked everything and followed your dream and you made it. Maybe you can inspire these kids. Maybe some of them just need a little encouragement to do the same thing. And I kind of had a problem with that. You see, I've been very, very lucky. I acknowledge that. Does that make it right for me to stand here and tell anyone to take crazy risks, to possibly derail whatever path you're on, throw away safety and security, all to chase a dream that might net you nothing but heartache? Is it responsible for me to do that? I mean, what if your dream is crazy? What if you listen to me and spend the next 10 years trying to be the king of Pennsylvania, the first man on the sun? You wind up back in Lake County all pissed off because I said to follow your dream. And what about your families? What if their advice is to play it safe, get a solid career going to fall back on, make a little money, and then follow your dream? Is that a bad thing? The real question for me was this: am I just a lottery winner trying to get you to spend your life savings on tickets? Can I live with myself if I urge you to gamble and you lose? I'm not 19 anymore. I'm 41. You look 25. Thank you. It's very kind. I have a daughter. What would I tell her? And I debated this right up until last night. I argued both sides in my head, and the thought that kept coming back to me was this: the only real way to fail is to not try. The true failures are those unfortunate people who are condemned to spend their lives with their eyes glued to the road not taken. I could have done this, I should have done that, I would have made a great whatever. There's a fish, I believe it's the pike, and here's a fun activity you can do. You take a pike and put it in a jar of water. I have the stuff in the car. Put it in a jar of water, and then submerge that jar into a larger body of water in which there are smaller fish that the pike usually eats. The pike will go after the smaller fish and bang into the jar. And then it'll see another smaller fish and go after it and bang into the jar. Eventually, it gets wise and it stops. Now you take the jar out, dump the pike back into the water with all the other fish. The pike will see all this food swimming around, and it won't make a move. It will starve to death surrounded by food. I think sometimes we're all like the pike, not moving forward because we're afraid of bumping into a jar that's not there. Or perhaps we need to believe there's a jar there, so we have an excuse not to take risks. Sometimes it's our own dreams that intimidate us. They seem so big and impossible that it seems useless to even try. So I'm going to tell you a story I heard in second grade that changed my life. You know, of course I'm 8. How hard is it to change your life? Chocolate milk changed my life when I was 8. Okay, there's this king, right? He's got this kingdom. He's got this beautiful daughter, this princess who is of marrying age. And he says to the kingdom, he says, all you eligible guys, I will give my daughter's hand in marriage to the man in this kingdom who can leap to the top, who can jump to the top of this big staircase that leads to her chamber. And of course, all the guys are thinking, okay, here's my chance. I'm going to do this. And all the big athletes come and they train, and they all take a whack at it. They go to the stairs, and they try different approaches. Some of them stand there and just leap, and others take a running start. But in every case, they land on the staircase and, down to the bottom. And then there's this one little guy. He's kind of nerdy guy. We'll call him Dan O'Shannon. No, we won't. Anyway, he goes up and says, I'm going to take a crack at this. And everyone kind of laughs at him. He goes to the bottom of the stairs, and he looks up at the top. And he takes a deep breath, and he jumps onto the bottom step. And everybody laughs at him. And then he jumps to the second step. And from there to the third, to the fourth, to the fifth, until eventually he has jumped all the way to the top, and he gets the princess. The point is, unachievable goals are made up of smaller, achievable goals, which brings me back to 1982. When I first told my family I wanted to write television, they thought I was nuts. I think they wanted to have me tested. How was a kid from Painesville going to go to Hollywood and tell actors what to say? Of course, I couldn't do that, but what I could do was drive to Cleveland and start doing amateur nights at a comedy club. That was an achievable goal. Once I'd gotten good at it, I could travel around and get paid for it. That was the next achievable goal, and so on. You need to figure out what you ultimately want, plan the best course you can with the knowledge you have, and jump on the first step. And remember, the passion with which you pursue your goal should not be blind. It should be supported by logic and common sense. It's getting kind of dry, this part of the speech here. I'll tell you a fun fact about Eddie from Frasier if you want. Okay, you see, the dog that plays Eddie is actually the second dog to play Eddie because the first one got really old, but he doesn't have the same markings, so some of his spots are actually painted on. I guarantee that will be the only thing any of you remember from this speech. If you're going to take risks, if you're going to pursue your dream, etc., a few things to keep in mind. 1, don't be too proud to ask for help. Don't ask me for help, I'm very busy. But ask for help. Pride is something you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to put it aside sometimes. Speaking of pride, I was talking to this girl once. She was 23, and she was bitter because she'd always wanted to play the clarinet, but her parents had never got her lessons. So I said, why don't you start now? And she said, because I don't want to be 23 and playing hot cross buns. Now that conversation was 16 years ago. If she had played hot cross buns, she'd be great now. She was too proud an athlete to jump on that first little step.